What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Scott Kumler, and this is the podcast where we break down what's actually working in real estate right now from agents who are building real estate businesses in real markets. And today's guest is someone you're going to want to study if you've ever thought about using YouTube for real estate. I'm sitting down with Brandon Vincent, a top producing agent based out of New Brunswick, Canada, who has built his entire business through YouTube so well that leads actually call him, not ClickFunnels, not buying leads, not chasing people. People find Brandon's video, binge his content, and then pick up the phone and call him when they're ready to move. In this episode, Brandon breaks down how he structures his YouTube videos to attract high-intent buyers and sellers, the type of content that turns viewers into inbound calls, how long it really takes before YouTube starts working, and how agents at any market can start building an inbound business with video. If you're tired of chasing leads and want a business where clients come to you already knowing, liking, and trusting you, this episode is going to open your eyes. And as always, if this conversation sparks something and you want to explore partnering with me and my organization looks like, feel free to call or text me at 623-387-2688 or book a Zoom meeting with my calendar link below. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more interviews with agents who are actually doing it at a high level. All right, let's jump in. Here's my interview with Brandon Vincent. All right, guys, welcome to another podcast. Super excited to have an amazing agent out of New Brunswick. Brandon Vincent is on today's podcast. Brandon, thank you for hopping on.
Scott, thank you very much for having me. I'm super excited for the conversation. You and I just kind of had some really good back and forth there, so I'm super excited for where this goes, and hoping that we can bring all kinds of value to your audience.
Yep, awesome. Appreciate it. Yeah. And, one of the things I'm always interested in, hopefully my viewers are as well too, is I'm always kind of curious on someone's trajectory of what got them to where they're at today. So kind of take me back to before you got into real estate. Like, what
Yeah,
made you actually decide to take the leap to get your real estate license? And what
yeah.
did you do before you actually got into real estate?
Yeah, great question. So what I did, so I started working at 14 years old. I worked at a little produce store right behind my high school. From a very young age, was kind of eager to get into the workforce and kind of get that process rolling and put some money in my pocket. So started working at 14 years old. At 16, I joined the military. There was a military recruiter in my high school. And he caught me nice and young, and he was like, "Hey, do you like camping?" And that, I was hooked. And at that point, signed up for the military. So from a very young age, I was working pretty well every single day of the week. I was either in high school, and then after school, I was going to this little produce store, and then I was in the military on the weekends. So that's pretty well what formed me. Then I did all of that. So I was in the military. I actually just released a couple of years ago. So I did 14 years in the military in total. But after and in between the military, there was a buffer period where I was trying to find something. I'm going, this isn't what I want to do forever. I want to explore, and I always loved business. I always admired following people like Gary Vaynerchuk. I was like, man, that guy's energy is so contagious, and I absolutely loved it. And I followed a lot of business people, and then ever since like cell phones came out and you could actually learn from millionaires, I started to get really inspired about business, because I was like, I feel like this is what's drawing me. There was a draw towards entrepreneurship, and I also always worked for small companies. So I was always looking at the owners as these entrepreneurs. My mom was an entrepreneur as well. So I always admired people that that were making their own way in life. And I was like, I really want to do that. Never thought I would be a real estate agent. Never ever thought. After I was kind of getting out of the military, I got into a little business with my mother. My mother is a massage therapist, and her and I opened up a little spa because she wanted to make a satellite clinic. And I was like, I want to help you because I have a bunch of business ideas from all these people I've been watching. And I realized that the spa industry is not where I needed to be. But I learned so much about business at that point, about hiring employees, managing people, marketing a business, doing all the expenses, running payroll, taxes. Like that's where I really learned all of these things. And then my grandfather, who was a real estate agent, he approached me one day and he goes, "How much money are you making doing this?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm not making any money. I'm working my back off here." And I'm, because there's not much money in a brand new business, right? So, anyway, he goes, "You'd make a very good real estate agent." And I was like, "No, there's no way." I did not see it. I've always got in trouble for talking everywhere I went. I was in communications in the military. So I was a radio operator. So I was on the radios talking all the time. And And I was actually a commercial diver for a little while too, an underwater welder. And during that time, I remember people would be like, Brandon, stop talking. Like you're literally wasting oxygen. And it's so funny because now I get paid for doing what I do best, which is building relationships, talking, communicating, and putting a message out. So my grandfather got me into the business. I never thought I'd be a real estate agent. I was trades, I was military. I thought the way that I was supposed to make a living was, pretty well like in the dirt. But that's where I pretty well got a lot of my character, and then came into real estate, and I've absolutely loved it. It's been 7 years as a real estate agent now.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and yeah, it's definitely important, especially when it comes to communication. I mean, I love the fact that you're in communications because the reality is, right, in real estate, you have to be able to communicate, and that's one of the most underutilized, skill sets that's needed, and sometimes it's not necessarily what you say, but it's also how you say it, especially energy, and definitely love your energy because the reality is, man, people are attracted to that, right? People are attracted to energy, which I think is extremely important as well, too, versus being like monotone, not really excited, and stuff like that. So, definitely love the fact you talk a lot about your communication background and history as well too. So now I know right now you crush it when it comes to YouTube, social media, all that good stuff. But obviously you've been in real estate for 7 years. Have you always done YouTube, or what did you do? Take me through like the early days when you first became a real estate agent.
Yeah. Yeah, the early days. So I started off at Keller Williams. That was my brokerage that I started off at. And I was I always knew there was something with social media. Even when I was in commercial diving, I was practicing social media because I followed Gary Vaynerchuk and he was like, there's social media, it's a big thing. And I was like, I want to learn to utilize this tool. So even before I got into business, I was practicing on TikTok, making stories every day. And I had a lot of friends that were like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you wasting all the time doing this stuff? And I was like, I don't actually know, but I know there's a reason. I was practicing for later in life, but I didn't realize at that time. So once, as I said, I owned a business prior to getting into real estate. So I was already familiar with marketing on Instagram, on Facebook. And at that time, like Facebook leads were like dirt cheap. There was no like restrictions as to who you're allowed to advertise to. And so I was used to things like that. So coming into real estate, what I did was instead of marketing that brand that I had before, I just started marketing myself. So I was
Mhm.
like, okay, I just need to now make myself the product and not this. It was a spa before, but now it needs to be me. So it was just a shift of learning how to market yourself. And I think that was one of the trickier ones, but I didn't have a bunch of success with it. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I wasn't doing any of it right. And there was no agents at my brokerage at the time that were really crushing it on social media. There were some that would like have the odd phenomenal post that like did a really good listing video every once in a while, but nobody was really doing it consistently for leads. And then I ran into Mike Sherrard. I ran into his channel. Somebody actually pointed me in his direction at a friend nearby. Go, you have to check this guy out. So I did. And then after I seen him, I was like, there's other ways to do this business where we can learn from practitioners. But prior to that, Scott, it was a lot of my own network. I did get a little bit of business from social media back then. But it was a lot of just pulling kind of, close contacts, friends, parents, and just kind of being almost relentless with just telling everybody about it, being out there doing open houses. And I tried to leverage every single activity I did when I started off. So if I was going to a listing appointment, I would get on camera and be like going to a listing appointment. And then I would take a picture of like a blank contract just to show people. Like I was just trying to leverage every single activity. And then if I got it signed, I was like, new listing coming out soon. So it's just leveraging every little thing, even if it wasn't huge. Sometimes if I was just going in to get measurements, I was like, hey guys, going in to get measurements for this property, going in now to do photos, and just like trying to make it almost seem like I was busier than I was, which a lot of people kind of were watching it and they're following along. They're going, I wonder how this is going to work out for them. And then so it's almost like I've been documenting the journey from the beginning, and I think that's helped me quite a bit because a lot of people have seen where I started from, and they knew I was doing commercial diving. So it's kind of like going along the journey with all the people watching at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And really with social media, really that's all it is just documenting your day, and that's important. If you want people to know that you're working, you're out there doing the activities, and then, because a lot of times buyers and sellers they want to work with people who are hard workers, and if you're
Yeah.
a secret agent, no one knows. what you do. So I know you briefly brought up Mike Sherrard. Obviously we're both in the same group within EXP within the Wolfpack, which Mike Sherrard's co-founder for. But were you so did you as far as like Mike Sherrard's training and everything you went through, did you go through his training before you joined the Wolfpack, or does that what caused you to decide to join the Wolfpack?
So when I talked to Mike, EXP wasn't in New Brunswick yet. It wasn't in my province, but it was coming. And pretty well, he goes, I know you're in. So he kind of gave me a little bit of early access to the Social Agent Academy. And so that kind of got me started. And after I realized that I was getting more value from somebody outside of my current brokerage than I was getting at my brokerage that I was at, I was going, oh, this is a no-brainer for me. So I started it a little bit before I moved over, and that was something that actually that made a big difference because I followed his formula. I made my first YouTube video, which was 5 reasons to move to St. John, New Brunswick. That's the city that I'm from, and that one exploded right off the bat. And I filmed it on my phone. I edited it on my phone. I was using like a horrible app that crashed like 17 times and I was editing this video, but I was like, just get this finished, get it to the finish line. And then I uploaded it to YouTube and it got like even to this day, it's one of my most watched videos, got like 9,000, 10,000 views or whatever. And it was something that started getting me business right away. And that's where I was like, okay, I need to double down on this. So it was, yeah, it was pretty well as soon as I came over to the Wolfpack. But obviously, it all didn't happen instantly, right? YouTube is a longer process. The longer you're on the platform, the longer that you're putting out videos consistently. That's where you're kind of building the traction with it. So at first, people were kind of laughing at it too, right? That was because nobody around here did it. So when you're doing something new and you're kind of that person on the cutting edge, some people are going to laugh. Some people might look and say, "Oh, it's clever," but a lot of people are like, "What are you doing? What are you doing these videos for? You've only been an agent for 2 years. Why are you on YouTube talking about real estate?" And I was just trying to give some value, and that's where I really came from. I'm going, how can I talk about the market? How can I talk about things that I know? Maybe 5 ways to increase your home value. Like I know there's a few things that you can do to increase, like fresh paint goes a very long way. Curb appeal goes a very long way. These tiny little things. So I was just finding anything that I learned, and I wanted to pass that on, and always trying to come from a place of giving some type of value, right? What can I share that somebody might find useful?
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and I love how the fact you talked about that it took a little while to really get the momentum going because a lot of times people think that you have like immediate success, especially when it comes to social media. I mean, it's a long term. You have to be in for the long run, and if you're expecting success right away, it's not typically going to be like that, And
No.
typically, you might have that one hitting video like kind of like you mentioned, your first video hit, and you started getting some traction out of it right away, but it definitely can be a long term process. So how long did it take until you officially like feel like you started getting some main momentum where it's like, okay, now you
Yeah.
have leads calling you all the time consistently? How many videos do you typically post a week, and how long do you have to post those videos to kind of see that long-term success?
Yeah, so I started noticing that it was pretty well like working and becoming my main source of lead generation, I'd say about 3 years ago. But I didn't actually even really realize it at the time. I was just going, okay, this is working. And I have to be honest, there was ebbs and flows of social media because there was times where I was hyper consistent. But when I was starting off, I was doing my own video editing. I was doing the thumbnails. I was doing every single thing. So like it would take about 8 hours to get a video from setting up the camera to the lighting to hitting record to jamming out on the script, which was like it would probably take like 40 minutes of me talking to the camera, which is a weird thing at first. If you're not used to speaking to the camera in a dark room kind of deal, like it's a weird thing to get used to. It's a very strange process to get used to sitting in front of a camera and delivering a message. It was very foreign to me and I was very uncomfortable doing it, but I kind of went through the motions. And then after I'd get the video done, I'd have to edit all the stuff out that was me just sitting there thinking about the next thing to say. I would edit that and then put some B-roll on there because I'm like, this is boring as can be. I need to put something flashy in to make this entertaining. Put the B-roll in then And then you get it uploaded. I'm going, that's about 8 hours. Luckily, when you're starting off in real estate, you don't have a boatload of business going on. So I had that time to spend doing it, but I burned out. I was doing 2 videos a week and I did that for about 3, 4 months. But then I was like, I am burning out because I was not leveraging maybe getting an editor or anything along those lines. And I just didn't really have the resources starting off. So there was a lot of kind of start and stops. And then also, I let some negative comments get to my head too. There was a lot of times that somebody would leave a negative comment and I'd go, I'm not really inspired to do my next video because I don't like the way that made me feel.
Mhm.
But then I would have to I'd get thicker skin. And then I'm going to get back at it because I know that works and I know for the long-term play. So, I mean, I definitely didn't kind of start off and just kind of like run straight down. There was a lot of start and stops. But the good thing is, 4 years ago, I started and I've always gotten back to it, which it's always kind of revived the channel. And I'm never starting from scratch. I'm always starting from a certain foundation.
Mhm.
So it's a consist like if I could have done anything differently, I would have gone consistent. I would have if I knew what I knew now back then, I would have not have stopped. I would have found ways to not burn out and I would have ran consistently because it would be significantly different. My channel would be way bigger.
Mhm.
But even still right now, luckily there's not much competition in my marketplace. So I've still maintained a dominance because I got in early. I got in fairly early. So even agents that start now, you can see like they'll post videos and it just takes longer to build up that audience because there's already once you have somebody that's dominant in the marketplace, it just makes it a little bit trickier to compete, I think, possibly. I don't know why a lot of people don't do it. I'm still honestly scratching my head going, why is there not more real estate agents posting on YouTube? Because like for me, I believe personally, there's enough business for everybody to go around. And if all 23 of the agents that I sponsor in New Brunswick started doing YouTube, I think we'd all get different clients. I don't think we'd infringe on each other. I think we all have different energies. And like you said, energy is so important. And like energy attracts like energy. There's going to be certain people that really like my energy. And there's certain people that are going to go, that guy's way too much. He's way too energetic. I do not want that. Some people just can't stand it. And that's fine. But I would rather put myself out there so that we filter that process first. And the people that come to me already know what I'm like.
Yeah, yeah, and I love what you mentioned about like kind of the negative comments because obviously once you become successful, like there's always going to be haters. There's people that are going to talk about have negative comments, but obviously my personal opinion, one of the best things about YouTube, and obviously there's not enough people agents that are doing YouTube, but one of the best things about YouTube is you're basically attracting people that don't like you anyways, and you're attracting people that already like you. So at the end of the day, when someone reaches out to you, there's no sell. You don't have to sell yourself. You don't sit down with them and sell your value, stuff like that. They reach out to you. They've already sold on working with you. They'll sign whatever employment agreement at that point, and they're ready to rock and roll. So I definitely love that.
Yeah. I have a cool story for you, Scott,
Yeah.
for a second, just on that note. So 2 years ago, I had a client call me from the other side of Canada in BC. So I'm on the East Coast. He called from the West Coast, and he said, Braden, he said, I have a 4 unit in your city, and I want you to sell it for me. This is 10 seconds into the conversation. I then start to sell myself to him, going, absolutely. Here's my track record of selling multi units in the past. Here's what I'm able to do for you. He stopped me right around 30 seconds and said, Brandon, I don't have time. I trust you. I just had a kid. And he's like, I literally don't have time. That's why I want to sell this. I just don't have time for the headache. I trust you. I know what you're like. I've been watching your videos for a long time. Whatever you think, send me the documents and I'll sign it. It was a 2 minute conversation, and I got a $400,000 listing from it. And and like I get chills to this day thinking about it because he was one of my favorite clients. He was bought in from the beginning, and it's like I will go to bat for the fences. Like it's like I will die on my sword for people like that. Like it's like those are the clients that I want. People that already trust me. And that's a beautiful thing about YouTube is people come to you, they're already sold, they're already bought in. And it's created a lifestyle for me that's just made the business more enjoyable where, people reach out like, "Hey, I want to work with you," as opposed to me going around like you said, trying to sell yourself all the time, which gets a little exhausting. But
Yeah.
some people are good at it though.
Yeah. But listen, I love that story because if you can, like a lot of times people do buyer consultations or listing presentations or whatever to try to sell themselves, but YouTube is kind of that consistent buyer consultation, but you're doing it to the masses, right? You're doing it to everyone.
Yeah.
one. So it's like by the time they call you, you don't have to redo it because they've already kind of sold you. And then on top of that too, a lot of times, especially in real estate, you're not necessarily negotiating the other side, but typically a lot of times you're negotiating with your client as well too when you're trying to submit an offer, something like that. And so typically, if they trust you more, then typically when you advise them on something, they're going to listen to you, and it's going to be a little bit easier to kind of submit offers versus if you
100%.
yeah, versus if like they don't know who you are, they don't trust you yet, and you're trying to say, I recommend doing this, or like, okay, well, I don't trust you. I think we should do this, you know? So it definitely gives you
Right.
kind of
And then
that.
it makes, and there's friction. And then there's friction in those transactions, right? And I had a lot of those transactions when I first started off in real estate because I was taking any business. I was like, I want to work with anybody. And I remember a couple clients that like, that it just, I was like, I shouldn't have even taken that listing to begin with. Like, I remember one time I was in a client's house and he screamed at his daughter in front of me to the point where she cried. She had a baby in her hands. She was probably like 21, 22 years old. She was living at home, and like I think the baby made some noise and he was screaming at her to get out of the house. And then I'm going, I should have walked away at that point, but I was so desperate for business. I took the business, and it was one of the worst transactions that I remember. And I didn't even end up closing it. It just ended with him saying like, "I don't want to work with you anymore." And I was like, "Thank goodness." I drove right to his place and threw the sign right in the back. But I'm thinking back to that, and it's like that was some of the deals that I had back then, but that hasn't happened in the last 3, 4 years since I started doing YouTube. That doesn't exist anymore. I don't align myself anymore with people that we don't share values in, right? And so it's just it's made it much more enjoyable. And I'm super thankful and very grateful that I've kind of grown my business in this way.
Yep. Yeah, now I got to ask you because with YouTube also, there's a lot of times people will post on YouTube, but they typically post like the wrong content. You know, they're not talking
Yeah.
about doing the right type of videos, things of that nature. What do you
Yeah.
find? And I know there's a few different methods out there as far as like what type of content to post on YouTube, but what type of content do you typically post? Which ones do you
Hmm.
typically feel like you had the most success with when it comes to creating YouTube content?
What people seem to love is anything local. Anything where I'm talking about the local market is where I'm seeing the most amount of traction. A lot of times, as somebody coming into YouTube, you're almost thinking you want everybody. You want your video to go viral. You want to like, I want something that every seller in the world's going to look at. But that really doesn't that's few and far in between, right? Focusing on hyper localized topics, let's say local market updates, have always been something that crushes. Focusing on, let's say, 5 favorite restaurants in my city, 5 favorite neighborhoods in my city, 5 reasons to move to my city. And then sometimes you can put these polarizing topics in too. When you make polarizing topics, so for example, I'm living in somewhere called Quispamsis now. It's just outside of St. John, but it's one of the most desirable areas in southern New Brunswick. And I made a video called Exposing Quispamsis.
Mhm.
And in it, I'm saying things like, I'm like, if you want to live in a town that's got like a bumping nightlife and like has like, people partying on the streets, then this isn't for you because we shut down. Like just about everything here closes at 11 p.m. So I'm making these like, so I'm taking things that I know are good, but I'm kind of spinning them in a weird way where a lot of people are going, wait, that spot's beautiful. Why is he exposing it? What's he saying bad about it? And I've actually had like people like that just seen the thumbnail and then they like click in the video and they're instantly on the keyboard. And I'm like, did you watch the video? Because everything I'm saying is good. I'm
Yeah.
like, if you don't like wildlife, then you'll hate it here because we have deer just roaming through our backyards like all day. There's deer that sleep in the backyard. Like, and I mean, they'll come up to the window. We had a deer watching TV with us one day. It's poking its head in the window and the dog freaked out. And it's like, so playing into these things, that can be a great one. Finding kind of ways to polarize, even 5 reasons not to move to your city, maybe, right? Maybe you find some things that might not be great, but like at least then you're now building trust with people because they're like, hey, he's actually talking about the negatives too. That's going to build trust with your audience because you're not just selling the fluff. You're not just trying to sell things for you. It's like acting as if you're the mayor of your city, I think is a great place to start. Just kind of going around and going like, what would the mayor do if the mayor was making content? He'd be out talking to people. He'd be out showing the area. He'd be showing the neighborhoods. So all those kinds of topics have always worked very, very well. Anytime I make a topic that's too broad, they never seem to do that well. But all the hyper local specific stuff, works really good. And that's what you want as a real estate agent for anybody that's producing. You want to focus on the hyper local stuff so that when people are typing in your city, that the SEO is showing your videos.
Mhm.
So anytime somebody types in a market update for my city, I'm the majority of the videos that are recommended because I do an update every single month and nobody else is doing that.
Yeah, well, and that's even important, extremely important right now with ChatGPT as well, too, because everything's so niche. So if someone's like looking up, top real estate agents in a specific area, who are they going to recommend? Someone who's very niche, and not too broad. So, and I know we've been talking about, even within the Wolfpack, a lot about ChatGPT recently and how important that is to be
Hmm.
very niche. So it's definitely extremely important. So, outside of YouTube, I know we talk a lot about YouTube. Do you typically have other like social media mediums that you feel like you typically have the most success from, or like you do them all? Like, which ones do you typically use?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that because this is a very good point too that I want to share. So the best formula that I've found is using YouTube for the long form. So I'll put the 15, 20 minute videos on YouTube. And then what I'm doing from there is I'm taking those videos and I'm putting them into Opus Clip.
Mm,
And then Opus Clip will use its AI software to find um, the most relevant or viral clips. Like it's like what clips have the highest possibility of getting views. And then from there, I make sure I go in and I go, okay, do I like the way this was clipped up? Do I want to add any part of it? Do I want to change some of the editing in it? So I'm always doing the final touches on it, but I use that to then disseminate to all the other platforms, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I've been finding TikTok has been working way better lately. I think the audience is maturing a little bit on TikTok. A couple years ago, it was a lot of people just kind of like dancing and stuff. And I was like, I don't know what to do on this platform. I don't know what to do. I didn't understand it. But now when I'm posting content on there, I'm going, oh, my stuff's getting more views on TikTok than any other platform right now.
yeah.
And and I'm shocked by that because I'm going, oh, I think the audience is starting to mature. And that happens on platforms, right? Think of Facebook when it first came out. Facebook was mostly people and Instagram. It was like mostly people taking pictures of their food,
Mhm.
right? It was just like everybody taking pictures of the food they were eating. So nobody really even knew how to use the platform at first. And then as the platform grows and matures, then it starts to flourish into something else. And Facebook at first was pretty well just all like teenagers on it. But then those teenagers grew up and they had kids. And now the parents want to see their grandchildren more. So now they start following. And now you get all these age demographics on there. So platforms mature, but I've been always kind of dabbling on them all, but I use YouTube as the main to make the long form, and then I'll kind of chop the short form up from the long form, and I put those on all the other platforms.
Yeah, funny quick stories about TikTok. So, I obviously have a team here in the Phoenix area. At one point I was talking to my wife trying to figure out like why our agents are not posting on social media more because I never see any of their posts. So they
Yeah.
were showing me TikTok videos that all of our agents were creating, and I'm like, oh, no wonder I don't see their videos. I'm not on TikTok because all my agents are actually posting on TikTok right now. So they were doing a better job than I thought they were doing. So it definitely,
Oh, that's cool. And yeah, TikTok is doing very well, and especially for the localized content too. Like I actually recently because of ChatGPT, it's been a lot easier to pull up like history documents. So I've been finding a lot more history about St. John, about the city I'm in. And then I'm going, let's talk about the history a little bit. Those videos absolutely crushed. If you start telling people about like how the city became what it is, start talking about the city in the 1800s, people are very interested about that. Very, very interested. And so I've told some of the stories there, and I mean those videos have tens of thousands of views on TikTok. And I'm like, wow. And then that then got a whole bunch of people from my city to follow me on TikTok. And then now I'm, share the market updates and stuff too. But yeah, it's been an interesting one. I'm really keeping my eye on it. I know a lot of people talk about LinkedIn as an up and coming platform. I'm still waiting to see it. I'm not getting much traction on LinkedIn as I'd like, but I'm still kind of posting on there. Another weird one is Threads. I don't know what I think about Threads. I'm not overly thrilled about Threads. I know it's like that's like Mark Zuckerberg's attempt at making Twitter, I believe. But we'll see how that works out. I don't know. It's just kind of watch and shoot, right? Just kind of watch how things are developing, and always, I think, having a little bit of a presence, knowing how to use the platforms and testing them out to see. Now, here's the thing. each platform is going to have a little bit of a different flair. I know I don't do this right. I kind of just take like one clip and I'm going to share it on every single platform and just see which one it resonates with. Sometimes the clips are bangers on TikTok and then they'll not be as exciting on LinkedIn, but they'll get, maybe a few hundred views on Facebook and Instagram. But sometimes the ones that don't do well on TikTok do very well on Facebook and Instagram. So I just try to I like the shotgun approach because it makes it a little bit easier. It's not the most strategic, but right now it's what I'm doing and it's working.
Nice, nice. And I do want to kind of, I don't want to gloss over this because I know you did briefly mention this, but you talked about a lot of the AI stuff they're using today as well too. And going back to one of our earlier parts of the conversation, you talked about how you used to, when you first got into real estate, you used to take like 8 hours to create one video. And so in today's age, with all the new AI software and talk about CapCut, you talk about all these different things. The reality is there's really no excuse for people not to be on social media now on YouTube because it's
Right.
so much easier. I mean, like talk a little about how much easier it is now to create a video versus when you first got into real estate.
Wow. Yeah. So when I first got into real estate, anytime I needed to make a topic, I would literally have to do the research. Like, I mean, I would, it's so funny thinking back at how fast things have changed, but I remember doing a video on the employment on like employment in my city, and I'm going, okay, I need to like go into like the government archives and figure out like what is the unemployment rate here, and then I'm writing all this stuff down, and then once you get the information that you need, you now need to figure out how you're presenting that. So then I'm going, okay, what are the bullet points here? How can I make a story out of this? So I'm literally sitting and thinking and like putting it all together. Where now you can go onto ChatGPT. The only thing is you just need to proof check everything because sometimes it spits out information that's not correct. So you just got to make sure that you're vetting it. But it'll give you just about everything you're looking for. And so it's significantly easier now. Like every video I did before, it was literally pen and paper and research. And I was writing stuff down and then planning it. And now you can go, hey, I want to do a video on this topic. And it's like, okay, here's some bullet points. And you're like, give me actually some talking points for each of those bullet points. Oh, okay. And it can spit it out. And then it'll even do the thumbnails way better now too, which is super interesting. So a lot of I still do a lot of my thumbnails because I do like to have the creative control on that because I think it's a pretty important part of the videos.
Mm.
So I'll use AI now. Like you can take a picture of yourself. Like you don't even need studio lighting. You can take a picture on your phone, making a reaction, post that into ChatGPT and say, give this studio lighting, and it'll look exactly like you. And a picture, it'll look like it was taken like a professional photography photo. And then you can use that on your thumbnail kind of deal. So there's all these different tricks, and I know I'm not even using it to the fullest extent. I'm just kind of getting my feet wet with it. But with AI, it's made it so much easier to scale. It's made it so much easier and it's made it so much faster for us to do that so that we can spend time focusing on our clients and focusing on the things that matter, right? So that's a huge benefit. And I agree. There is no reason for people to not be posting on social media now because of all the tools. It's just a matter of learning them. And I think a lot of people are just uncomfortable with sharing themselves on social media. I think that's the big drawback is a lot of people are scared of the responses they might get from their videos.
Mm.
It's people don't know and don't want to see the feedback that they might get. And doing something new, learning something new, it's not easy. You have to have some humility to kind of go, "Hey, I'm going to be willing to get on camera and look like a fool." Like my first few videos, it's like, they're not great, but everybody starts somewhere, right? And they get better and you get better, and the more reps you do, the more comfortable you get, and it gets a little bit easier.
Yeah, yeah, and you kind of alluded to the fact, especially with AI, people are afraid to kind of learn it, and I was in the same boat, like with technology. Like when I first, started learning about like, I've always said I'm very not tech savvy at all, and so with AI, I was always worried about how to figure out how to use ChatGPT and all, and then everyone started talking about these other names, and I'm like, well, I've never heard of these companies before. I have no idea who the heck they are, and that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why I love the group that we're in, the Wolfpack, and Mike Schur and all his training because he basically, and I tell people all the time, like especially with his AI training, he's kind of made it like idiot proof. So even someone like myself who knows nothing about technology can go in there and just plug in and just do exactly what it says. And now I use AI all the time for everything, and
Yeah.
and the cool thing about it too is it also learns. your style. So like at the beginning, I remember when ChatGPT first came out and you asked it something, it's like it's gonna be like a year plus old, and like no, there's nothing would be correct, and it sounded
Yeah.
like not like you at all. But now it's like whenever I ask ChatGPT anything, it's like, man, it sounds exactly like me. I'm like,
Yeah.
it knows me.
One of
So
the one of the best things I've done on ChatGPT, and I think it was Adam Gillespie in our group that mentioned this, but doing a disc profile.
mm,
And then so I use Tony Robbins' disc profile, and then that printed out like a 14-page report. And it's like, it took 45 minutes of me filling it out, la da 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 da. But then once I put that into ChatGPT, now it's got a full context on my personality, on how I would like to be spoken to, very direct. Like, don't give me a lot of fluff, just give me the facts. I don't want to spend forever reading a story. I just want to know the information. I just want to know, the key points. And now it can speak more like me too, because it has, just like you said, it's got way more context. So I find though, for anybody watching, like, customize your chat GPT to really make it effective. And then, like you said, there's other AIs out there that I'm kind of just starting to dabble in. I was just looking at Claude actually right before we jumped on this, because I know Mike Sherrod was just talking about Claude and how that works even better when it comes to doing written descriptions and anything written language to sound more human. And then you have Gemini, which is Google's. Then you have Grok, and then the Chat GPT. And it's just, it's kind of like figuring out which ones do what, right? So, but just like anything, it's all fun to learn. I like being on the cutting edge of it, because I know it's going to give us an advantage, right? There's some people that still aren't using Chat GPT, or they're just using it for like just the most basic stuff, and it's like you're barely scratching the surface. And it's so wild because our group's way ahead of it. Like, I've jumped on some coaching calls that, like, that I've seen on Facebook, where it's like AI gurus sharing the top information, and I'm going, okay, paid $30 for it or whatever. And then I'm going, oh, this is all stuff we covered last year in our group. This is all stuff that we've been talking about for a year. Like, our group is way ahead of the curve of the majority of people.
yeah, yeah. So, and now something I do always like to talk about, and we kind of alluded to this. Obviously, we're in the same group at EXP. We're both part of the Wolfpack. And usually, sometimes I'll ask people what made them join the Wolfpack. Now, obviously, you kind of already alluded to, especially for the social media aspect and things of that nature. But so I kind of want to twist it a little bit differently than what I normally would ask. But
Yeah.
so you've been with Wolfpack for 3 years. Um,
4, yeah.
oh, 4 years. Okay, so 4 years. So just tell me now, after you joined the Wolfpack, how's your kind of experience been within the group? Like, what are some things you find like that are the most beneficial? Also, too, one of the things I always like to ask too is what surprised you the most after joining the Wolfpack?
I love it. I love that question. I love it because, yeah, I talk about this a lot. So, what surprised me the most, Scott, is from my background, I was in the military, like I said. So, I was very used to having a strong camaraderie with everybody I was working with. And at my previous brokerage, I'm doing all the things, I'm closing deals, I'm getting business, I'm getting listings, but I'm going, I don't feel fulfilled. I'm not enjoying this. I was starting to get like burned out like 3 years in, even though I was like my business was growing year after year, almost doubling at first, and but I was like, I don't feel good about this though. There was like a frustration. And then once I talked to Mike, I was like, this guy's got something different. There's something different about his energy. And I think it was kind of like that his direct communication style. No fluff. He's going, this is exactly what you need to do. Here's how it is. Let that answer the question. Bam. Like, it was all very direct. I'm going, I really like that. Then coming into the wolf pack, start jumping on the calls. And I'm going, everybody's sharing their secrets. Everybody's sharing like they're all sharing the playbook, and they're like doing it happily. And I'm going, wait, I was skeptical. I'm going, I'm not used to this, because everybody at my previous brokerage, it was kind of, you only felt like you're getting half the information. I'm going up, nobody was this excited to help anybody at my past brokerage. And I was like, what's the catch? So I start going to the calls, our production calls, and week after week, people talking about their successes and people giving like crazy value. The guests he would get on, the people that'd be on talking. And still, here we are 4 years later, and it's still happening week after week after week. And I'm going, on my, early in, I was just going, wow, is this ever refreshing to be around a group of people that are inspired, that are fired up, that are showing up and like bringing energy and that are sharing with each other. So the thing that really surprised me was how collaborative the Wolfpack is, because I know EXP talks about collaboration, and EXP itself is a very collaborative brokerage. But the Wolfpack takes it to another level.
Mm,
They take it, even the fact, you and I doing this, you're in Phoenix, I'm on the east coast of Canada.
mm,
And like we're jumping on a call, collaborating with each other right now. I have a whole bunch of Wolfpack leaders coming in to speak to the agents I sponsor here on the East Coast because of the connections I built at these conferences. So
mm.
it's like now I'm able to share that value and the fact that people are even willing to share and spend the time to pour into us here on the East Coast when it makes no sense. Like, why would somebody even spend the time to do that? But this is the culture that we have because it's like a high tide raises all ships. So what's really surprised me, man, and what's really fulfilled me and inspired me is like the culture within the Wolfpack. This like unshakable culture. And coming from the military, I'm going, this is what I was looking for. This kind of camaraderie. That's the camaraderie I was kind of looking for. People that are actually looking to help each other, people actually looking to share with each other, people that are actually fired up and kind of pouring into each other. And then, you know, like just the amount of people wearing the logo. Like I'm like proud to wear this hat. I wear it everywhere I go. I love the Wolfpack. It's like this has changed my life now because of what it's done for me in my real estate business. So um I hope that's an answer to that question.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I love you. I mean, the collaboration. I mean, you think from a cloud-based brokerage, it wouldn't be, I always say community, but like with the same thing, right? Collaboration community. But, at the end of the day, I mean, like, especially being a cloud-based brokerage, you don't expect that as much, because people think they need a brick and mortar location. And I've been in brick and mortar locations that has no collaboration, So at the end of the day, it does, the location doesn't really matter, but, you can have just as much collaboration, even being within a cloud-based brokerage. And then you can reach people in other parts of the world. I mean, kind of like you mentioned, you're in Canada, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, So now, if someone's watching this video and what they're hearing is kind of inspiring to them, and they want to be part of a collaborative environment, and they want to look at what partnering with you looks like within EXP and within the Wolfpack, what's the best way for an agent to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my cell phone is probably one of the best ways. 1-506-721-9020. That number again, 1-506-721-9020. Or they can shoot me a message on Instagram. So you can search up Brandon Vincent, B_Vincent Realty. Um, email, anyway, that people want to reach out. I'm sure you'll be able to put some of the maybe some of my contact information in the description or something along those lines. I'm not sure how you run it, but yeah, man, people can reach out anyway. I'm super flexible. Instagram, Facebook. I'm checking all those platforms at least a couple times a day to see what's going on. And yeah, no, it has been a life-changing experience for me. I know all the agents that we're bringing in. Here's the really cool part is I knew when I was coming into the Wolfpack, I'm going, there's value here
Mhm.
and it worked for me, but I wasn't convinced it's going to work for everybody. Every single agent that we've had come in so far that plugs in and that is bought into the culture and that shows up to the calls, they're all doing great. They're
Yeah.
all crushing it. Like the majority of the agents in my group are at bare minimum capping agents. So like I actually just ran the numbers because the EXP app is so cool. You can see
Mhm.
your revenue shares organization. You can see how much gross volume they've done. And I divided it by how many agents we have. And I'm going, okay, we're on average doing $100,000 per agent. It's a pretty cool friggin' stat. Right? So they're all producing pretty well. And we have new agents coming in that are doing super well. I just had a guy on my podcast. He was 6 months or sorry, in the last 6 months, he's done 7 deals and he's not even finished his first year in real estate yet. It's like he's a brand new agent. He's already closed 7 deals in the last 6 months. We get guys coming in doing cold calling, crushing it with cold calling. We have people coming in that are doing the social media thing and getting like business like almost within like 3 months of starting consistently posting and just introducing themselves and saying what they do and being passionate about it. So I've now seen the theory be proved, and it's like I'm super excited to grow this year because we have some real momentum here. Right now, I sponsor over 10% of the EXP agents in my province.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah. So I mean, and kind of like Brandon mentioned, I am going to put his contact information in the description here. So obviously, if you want to reach out to him, I'm also going to go ahead and put a Zoom or a Calendar link to my Zoom link as well too. If you want to schedule a call with me, and then make sure you let me know. that you saw this video
Mm.
because obviously with co-sponsorship now, it gives us the ability to both be able to help you, Brandon and myself. You
I was
get
just going to say that.
you could access the amazing coaches like Mike Sherrard. We have Joshua Smith in our line. So you have to access some amazing coaches and amazing culture. So, Brandon, definitely appreciate hopping on today. And as always, thank you.
Scott, thank you very much for having me on. It'd be a pleasure to co-sponsor agents with you, even anything down the road, man. I just want to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come on. This was an incredible call, and looking forward to seeing it come out.
Awesome. All right, take it easy, guys.